All right. So our scripture lesson for today comes from Luke chapter 4, verses 1 through 13. And it begins, Jesus, full of the Holy Spirit, returned from the Jordan and was led by the Spirit in the wilderness, where for 40 days he was tempted by the devil. He ate nothing at all during those days, and when they were over, he was famished. The devil said to him, "If you are the Son of God, command this stone to become a loaf of bread." Jesus answered him, "It is written, one does not live by bread alone." Then the devil led him up and showed him in an instant all the kingdoms of the world. And the devil said to him, "To you I will give their glory and all this authority, for it has been given over to me, and I give it to anyone I please. If you then will worship me, it will all be yours." And Jesus answered him, "It is written, worship the Lord your God and serve only him." Then the devil took him to Jerusalem and placed him on the pinnacle of the temple, saying, "If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down from here, for it is written, he will command his angels concerning you to protect you, and on their hands they will bear you up, so that you will not dash your foot against a stone." Jesus answered him, "It is said, do not put the Lord your God to the test." This is the word of the Lord. So I want to start off today by saying Happy Valentine's Day. I hope that everybody in here has gotten a little heart or two from somebody who they love. And today's story is a Valentine's Day story, although if you know me, it's not going to be a normal Valentine's Day story. So just be prepared for that. We're doing a sermon series entitled Modern Parables. For the last month, I have taken a parable that Jesus told in any of the Gospels, and then I would take them and I would transpose them into a modern setting. And now we are doing something slightly different. We're going to be looking all through Lent at Jesus' life, the narrative of Jesus' life that's found in the Gospel of Luke. So each week we'll read a little narrative, and then I'm going to tell you a story. Now these stories are fictional. They are based on real people and real events, but I've changed some of the circumstances around. So in that way it's kind of like historical fiction. And furthermore, I'm not going to tell you what I want you to take away from these stories. I tell you the story, and you have to compare the story to the narrative that we read, and my hope is that by doing so, it will illuminate for you exactly what I think this narrative is talking about. So, today's story, it begins on Valentine's Day of 2014 in one of those trendy little upscale restaurants in Austin, Texas. The name of this restaurant in Austin is called Wink. Now, on Valentine's Day of 2014, Wink, they had a Valentine's Day special. They had a tasting menu with a variety of wines and desserts to match. And one of the waitresses who worked at Wink was a woman named Elise Odette. Elise Odette. Now, Elise, she hated Valentine's Day. Just going to put that straight out there. Hated it. Even though she made a lot of money in tips, she found it to be rather difficult because she had to go from table to table watching all of these lovely people stare into each other's eyes. And she particularly didn't like it because it was very difficult to take people's orders. They often didn't even notice that she was standing there because they were so lost in whispered conversation with each other. Now, Elise herself, she did not have a boyfriend, and this was for good reason. Elise was a miserable human being. Elise, she was 3 years out of college, and she seriously regretted that she had wasted her education on getting an elementary education degree. Her mother had inspired her when she was young. It planted the notion in her mind that she would make a good elementary education teacher, but she came to find that she didn't even really like children all that much, let alone teaching them. Her student teaching reviews were so poor that she couldn't get an interview. One of her mentors wrote down on her review that she lacked the ability to make a decent connection with her students. And interestingly enough, she said she was so impatient that she actually felt that it was probably impossible for her to make any connection with any student. She once made a third-grade girl cry because she could not get the multiplication tables. And the way that she thought she would inspire her to learn multiplication was by saying, "This is so easy that a dog could understand it." Clearly teaching is not in Elise's future, but at least she has to pay the bills. So she starts waitressing. And about every 6 months, when she's about to get fired from her job and be sent off packing, she moves. She moves to a better, higher-rated restaurant. And the way that she was able to do this is that when she would go to this new restaurant to apply, she would sit down, and even though her references were horrible, she was always dealing with managers who were male. And she was quite a beautiful woman. And so these male managers, they were willing to look past the fact that she had these horrible references. And so every 6 months, she was jumping to a better and better restaurant until she had eventually gotten to Wink, where she was making between $200 and $300 a night in tips. Now, she wasn't worried about getting fired from Wink because she had briefly dated the manager of Wink, and after breaking up with him, she said that if you even think about firing me, I'm going to file a sexual harassment lawsuit against you. This is the kind of woman that we are talking about right here. It's the kind of person that we're talking about. So it's Valentine's Day. She's running from the kitchen to the tables, and one of her tables, there is this guy sitting there, and he's all by himself, and he's been there for 30 minutes. He's waiting for his date to arrive. 30 minutes turns into an hour, which turns into 2 hours, and Elise is on the verge of going up to this guy and saying, hey, you need to get out of here because she's not coming. And she looked at this guy, and she could tell that he was some kind of computer geek. Like, clearly, his skin was pale from basking in the glow of his monitor for hours at a time. He had this very pale, emaciated frame, and his bony structure kind of sat a little bit hunched over at the table. He looked like he lacked self-esteem. And so she was walking over there to say, look, I'm losing all this money in tips. You're not ordering anything. You got to go, right? That's pretty much what she was going to say to this guy. But then she stopped herself, and she thought, maybe this guy could be my meal ticket. Who knows? So she sits down at the table. She starts talking to him, and she says, I'm really sorry that your date didn't arrive, but look, I'd love to go get some drinks with you. 2 hours, my shift ends. Why don't you meet me down at this bar down the street? And of course, he is just overjoyed. He's so happy, and so he gets up, he leaves. They're able to sit some more people down at her table. She gets some more tip money. 2 hours later, she leaves. She goes to the bar. They start talking about life. Now, his name is Alan Spencer, and indeed, he is a computer guy. He works for a biomedical startup in Austin that specializes in making painless needles for syringes. And their idea came from the mosquito. So a mosquito is able to painlessly insert its proboscis into a human host to remove the blood. You all probably notice this. Like sometimes you don't even realize that they're there. And so there's a little bit of an anesthetic quality to the proboscis. Well, they were able to mimic this anesthetic quality in their needles. And as a result, you could get a shot almost painlessly now and not have to worry about what it was going to feel like when they inserted the needle. Now, this needle was on the cusp of receiving FDA approval. And when it got FDA approval, this little startup could go public. And it was estimated that his net worth would rise anywhere from $6 to $10 million. Now, of course, Elise liked the sound of that a lot. And so, even though she had zero attraction whatsoever to Alan, she was willing to set that aside for the financial security that he could provide. And from the moment that they started dating, Alan's friends were worried for him. Elise treated Alan like he was her servant. Wherever they were, whenever they were together, she was constantly critiquing and criticizing him. It didn't matter what he was doing, he was wrong. If he was eating food, he was eating it the wrong way, or he ordered the wrong thing. Whatever he was wearing the wrong colored clothes. He was wearing the wrong type of thing. And it was either too loose or too baggy. If he was driving too fast or too slow. She would even critique the way he said certain words. And when she wasn't berating Alan, she was spending his money. She would always ask him for lavish gifts. One time they went to a jewelry store, and she asked him to buy her a $10,000 diamond-studded Rolex watch. When he said that he could not afford such an expensive item. She said, well, maybe we should break up because clearly you don't love me. She used that line a lot on Alan, and it would always bring him to his knees because Alan had this very deeply entrenched fear that he would end up alone. And he felt like he had struck the jackpot by being with Elise, and so he figured, well, her behavior is just the price I have to pay for being with someone who I love so much. Well, things only got worse when Alan's company did go public. They got FDA approval, and then his net worth, it did rise considerably. The first thing that Elise wanted was a new car. And she'd always wanted to drive one of those Porsche SUVs. You know what I'm talking about? Porsche SUVs? Okay, so they go out, they get this car, and within 5 minutes of leaving the dealership, she managed to total the vehicle. She's driving on the freeway, going down, and she's on the phone yelling at Alan for the way that he conducted himself when they were purchasing the vehicle. She loses control of the car and smashes into the divider. Now, she's fine, right? But the unfortunate thing is that the insurance has not transferred over yet to this new car. So she has smashed up a vehicle that has no insurance on it. So he's out $100,000. And the next day, they go back and they buy another one. Then she turns her attention to where she wants to live. And she decides that she wants to live in the South Shore District of Austin. Now, the South Shore District is the trendiest, nicest part of Austin. And they go down there, and she chooses that she says, I want to buy a condo in the nicest building that's there. Now, this building is a beautiful high-rise, as you can see right here. The top level, if you're going to go to a top-level penthouse condo, it is $2 million for one of those. So Alan, he goes out, he purchases this thing, he furnishes it all to her specifications, and you want to know what the real kicker is? Is that once it's all furnished, she tells Alan that he is not welcome in the condo, that he's not allowed to come inside. And she says, if you want to be with me, then I need this as my space. I'll be here, and when we're together, we'll be at your place. But if we're going to be together, I need to have my own space. And Alan, he didn't even know what to say to that. But as she shut the door in his face, literally shut the door in his face and said, thank you for getting this for me, he just went numb. The next day, he goes into work, and he tells his coworkers what happened. And they're like, you have got to break up with this girl. This is crazy. This is out of control. Not only was she taking advantage of him, but his work performance was suffering a great deal. He was getting behind on a lot of the work he was doing. The work he was turning in had a lot of errors in it. They almost lost a huge account because he was so distracted from his work. And on top of that, he was also having some major health issues. He, all of a sudden, had started developing these really bad ulcers, and they were so painful that he would lay on his couch, and he couldn't even get up off of the couch to go to the pharmacy to get the medication. He once asked Elise if she would go pick up the medication for him at the pharmacy. She said, no, I'm too busy, and you need to stop complaining so much. Now, even though Elise treated him horribly, he always made excuses for her. And he would always say, well, you know, she had a really hard life. Her parents both died when she was very young, so she's always really had to take care of herself. She's emotionally very distant, but he believed that if he could just tell her how much he cared about her, that she would change her behaviors. Because he wasn't very good at expressing himself. He didn't know how to say the things that he felt inside, and so he thought, if I can just tell her how I feel, it'd change it all around. And he's thinking about this in his mind for months. He's thinking out the scenario about how he wants to do it, and he comes to a decision. This is what he's going to do. He's going to go to the jewelry store, and he does, and he buys this huge, massive engagement ring. He's going to propose to her. And so he gets this engagement ring, and he's just waiting for the right moment, and he decides, okay, I'm going to go do it. I'm going to go propose. So he goes to the penthouse, he knocks on the door, and he waits a few seconds, and then the door opens up, and on the other side is a man. And this man is a striking specimen of a human being. He looks like a model that walked out of an Abercrombie & Fitch ad. And this guy says, can I help you? And Alan says, well, yeah, I'm here looking for Elise. And the guy says, oh, well, she's not here right now, but if you're trying to sell us something, we're not interested. And he's caught off guard by the pronouns that this guy is using, the "were" and "us." And so he says, well, what do you mean we're not interested? Who are you? And the guy says, well, I'm Elise's boyfriend. And at this point, his heart, it just drops into his stomach, and he feels like he's been punched in the gut. And you can imagine, right, hearing that news. Well, the guy on the other side of the door, he can see this. And he says, hey, man, what's the matter? Are you okay? And Alan, he can barely get it together, but he says, do you live here? And the guy says, yeah, moved in a couple weeks ago, actually. It's a really nice place. But, I can tell Elise that you came by if you just want to give me a message to give to her. And Alan, he's got basically tears are welling up in his eyes, and he's got his hands in his pocket, and he can feel the box that the engagement ring is in. And he's about to just walk away because he doesn't even really know what to do. And then this moment of inspiration just hits him. And he turns to the guy and he says, yeah, could you tell Elise that Alan came by and that a moving company will be here tomorrow to help her move out? And the guy on the other side of the door, he looked confused like a puppy that lost its owner. And he says to him, he goes, well, who are you? And Alan says, oh, I'm the guy who owns this place, and I'm moving in tomorrow. And so he leaves. He leaves and he goes to his friend's house because he has the good sense at least to realize that she's going to try to come find him at his house. And so he stays at his friend's house all night. They play video games together, and he gets about 20 voicemail messages, 50 texts. The texts range from, I'm so sorry, will you please forgive me, to, you can't push me out on the street like this, to, I think you are a horrible human being, I hate you. That's the whole range of messages that he receives from her. The next day, 2 Austin police officers go up to the penthouse condo. They escort Elise and her boyfriend off of the premises. The moving van comes in and has instructions to remove every single piece of furniture from the place. They are to take it to an auction house. Alan wants to wipe out every single memory that she ever existed in this place. And that evening, he goes back to the penthouse, and he carries with him a chair, and he walks out onto the outside balcony. And when he gets onto this balcony, he sits down in the chair, and he looks out over the Austin skyline. And for the first time in a long time, he realized that he felt happy, like a weight had been lifted off of him. And he makes a decision at that point that he's going to rebuild his life, that he's going to get it back together. And so he goes back to work. He starts focusing in again on work. His health problems, they all go away. He meets this really nice girl at his work. Her name is Jenny. They have a lot of the same things in common. They're both computer geeks. They like video games. They go see the same movies. They take their first vacation to Comic-Con in San Diego. Do you know what that is? I don't know if you all do. But Comic-Con, right, that's where, for those of you who don't know what that is it's a convention where people who like science fiction and fantasy, they come together to see all the new stuff that's coming out in the movie world, and to revel in all the things that they love. A lot of people dress up in costumes. It's very interesting. So they go to this, and things are going really well for Alan. And he notices a big difference between this girl who he's dating, Jenny, compared to Elise. And Jenny, she actually likes him for who he is. She's not trying to change anything about him. She never critiques him or says anything negative. She just lets him be who he is, and he does the same for her. And he realizes, wow, this is such a stark contrast to what I'm used to. Then one day, he gets a phone call. He's at work, and he sees on his cell phone, it's from an unidentified number. And he picks it up, and on the other end of the line is a doctor from the University Transplant Center in Austin. And the doctor, he says that Alan's name has come up as a potential donor for a patient who is in need of a liver transplant. And so he says, would you be willing to come down tomorrow to do some blood work so that we can see if you're a match? And Alan says, well, I never filled out any paperwork to be an organ donor, so I don't know where you got this from. And he says, well, quite to the contrary, I have paperwork right here in front of me that says that you have. And Alan says, no, I haven't. And I have no intention of giving anybody my organs, so thank you very much. And he's about to hang up the phone when this doctor interjects and he says to Alan, he says, well, look, this patient has liver cancer. And we have to remove the entire liver. There's no way that the patient's going to survive. And so, because the patient is new, that means the bottom of the list in terms of organ donations. And livers are the least likely organ to get. That's the hardest organ to come across. And so really, when it comes down to it, you are probably going to be this patient's only opportunity for survival. So Alan, he agrees. He comes down, goes down to the University Transplant Center. He gets the blood work done, and they take all these vials, and he has to sit there for 4 hours because they're like, we need to do this now to figure it out. It's that kind of situation. And the doctor eventually comes out and says, hey, we're still doing the testing. Would you like to come and meet the patient? And Alan already knows who it is. He knows that it's going to be Elise. And so he walks down the hall, he walks in the room, and there she is. She's laying in the bed. And she looks horrible, like she's right next to death's door. Her skin is all yellow from her liver not working anymore. And she's thin, she's emaciated. She looks like she's about to die. And the doctor says, hey, look, I know you two know each other. Why don't you two have a conversation about this? I'm going to go see some other patients. And so Alan, he goes over, he sits down in the chair next to the bed. And she opens her mouth to speak, but he comes in over top of her and he says, I cannot believe that you would fake documents that say that I would give you one of my organs. Are you out of your mind? You do realize that you completely and absolutely broke my heart. You crushed my soul. Out of all of the people who you could call, why did you call me? And Elise, she's caught a little bit off guard by his anger because she'd never seen him angry before. And so she starts kind of scanning the room. And she's looking for the words. And she says, I don't have anybody else. My parents are dead. I don't have any brothers or sisters. I don't have any friends. Now, normally, in a situation like this, he would feel pity for her. That was how he felt about it usually, right? He would feel pity because she would always do this to him. He'd feel pity and then he'd give in to what she wanted. But he was surprised with himself. He didn't feel pity this time. He only felt anger. And so he kind of lights into her. And he says, you do realize, don't you, that the likelihood of there being a match between your liver and my liver, between our bodies being able to do this surgery is very, very low, right? And what makes you think that I would even be willing to go through this major surgery? I mean, they got to cut me open. They got to take out part of my liver. What makes you think I'm going to do that? You wouldn't even go down to the pharmacy to pick up my ulcer medication, and now you want me to give you part of my body? I can't help but think that this is some kind of divine retribution, divine justice for the things that you've done. I really believe that people's actions catch up with them, and it certainly seems that your actions have caught up with you. And Elise, she started to cry a little bit. He'd never seen her cry before, and all the time they've been together. She actually started to cry. And she said, I know that you're not going to be a match. I just don't want to die alone. So I know I don't deserve your help, but I just don't want to be by myself when it all comes to an end. And Alan, as he sat there, he's looking at her, and she can't even look at him. She's just scanning the room, just looking around, but she can't look directly at him. And Alan, he's getting so focused in. He's just thinking about it. He's so angry. He doesn't even want to be in that room anymore. He's thinking about all the ways that she mistreated him, how she abused his trust, how she abused his love, his generosity, his kindness. And there's a thought that creeps into his mind, and he thinks to himself, you deserve to die. And once that thought creeps in, he makes a decision that no, he is not going to be in that room 1 minute longer. And so he stands up, and he starts walking towards the door. And at that point, the doctor comes in, and he says, we just got the test back, and there's about a 70% likelihood that her body could accept your liver. The markers are enough there that we're willing to give it a shot. Are you willing to do this? Are we going to do this transplant? And Alan, he looks at the doctor and he says, there are 1 million other people in the world who are more deserving of my liver than this woman right here. And he intended to say, so she will receive nothing from me. But he didn't say that. Instead, he was planted there. And something inside of him just came up and said something that he had not intended to say at that moment. He says, and yet, I know deep down inside that if I leave this room right now, I'll never forgive myself. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that even though every fiber of my being is saying no, I'll do it. Happy Valentine's Day. Amen.